What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show, part of the All-City Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Mares, and I'm joined by the man who's already put in an 8-hour shift before you even got out of bed in the morning. It's Tim Legler.
I did, man. I already went on 7:30 a.m. Sports Center. Then I had 2 hours of get up, 2 hours of first take, NBA wall to wall. It's a great time of year at my network because sometimes we can get pushed to the side a little bit, Adam, if you know what I mean, during the regular season, competing with the NFL and college football and then March Madness. And then finally, when all that clears, we get to us and it's our stage and it's some great topics. So we had some really good discussion this morning.
Well, we're going to go even more in depth today on this show, as we always do. And we're going to talk about last night's disappointing loss for the Dallas Mavericks, but very impressive win for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the poised beyond their years Oklahoma City Thunder. We're also going to talk about the other game, the Celtics beating the Cavs. No Donovan Mitchell, no Jared Allen. But what happened in that game I thought was pretty interesting. And then later in the show, we'll preview tonight's games. Game 5, very pivotal, very interesting Game 5s for the Nuggets and Wolves, Knicks and Pacers. But first, we are presented, as always, by DraftKings Sportsbook. Stay tuned because you'll hear more about DraftKings and all it has to offer throughout the show. DraftKings, the crown is yours. All right, been talking about the Mavs for quite a while. Last night was a perfect opportunity for them to take control of this series. But Legs, they couldn't score. Luka Doncic in particular, just 6 of 20, 18 points. Kyrie Irving, 4 of 11, just 9 points from him, 9 assists. What was it about the Thunder that was able to shut down the Mavs the way they were?
Man, all right. I know we always get a good contingent of Dallas fans on here, and this is going to be hard for some of them to hear. So I suggest before we get started, put your big boy pants on. Don't get your feelings hurt, okay?
Okay.
Nobody's been more complimentary of Luka Doncic than me. I still think Dallas is going to win this series. So let me just put that out there. Let me put that out there right now. I still think Dallas wins the series. Having said that, it is undeniable that last night Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving came up small. There is no other word for it. They had 3 combined field goals in the fourth quarter, 2 by Luka, 1 by Kyrie. For the night, when you have a situation in which those 2 players that I just mentioned combined for the same number of made field goals as Chet Holmgren and Lou Dort, you've got a problem. When Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving combine to take the same number of shots as PJ Washington and Derrick Jones, you've got a problem on your hands. They did not get it done offensively. They did not come through when they needed to in a game that I felt they were in control of for the vast majority of the game. But you get into this fourth quarter, and this is the luxury of having 2 players on this level offensively. 2 different guys that can win any offensive matchup put in front of them. Any matchup they can take advantage of. They can score from deep off the dribble. They can get to the rim. They can make free throws. Any which way, they can win that matchup. They're on that level offensively. And they were nowhere to be found. They were missing very makeable shots. Luka missed a huge free throw when they had to have it. So I think the problems in this game were absolutely on the offensive end of the floor, despite the fact that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander went to work on them in the fourth quarter. That's a whole nother thing. He made some really difficult jump shots. Dallas elected to play him single coverage for the most part. He got to his spots. Man, did he make some tough shots, some pressure jump shots with a hand in his face, pat him on the back. So it's not mutually exclusive. Was it Dallas or was it Oklahoma City? It was both. Let's be clear about that. But on the other end of the floor, Dallas was absolutely anemic when they had to be. If you look at this game, and if you're Jason Kidd, Adam, they did so many things that I think are championship level defensively.
I agree.
With their physicality on the boards. There's a lot to like there. Some of their role players like stepped up and played well. There's a lot to like about what they did. This comes down to their two best offensive players and two of the best offensive players in the league absolutely not showing up in the fourth quarter when a couple of baskets would have made all the difference. That's all we're talking about. They don't have to go off for 30 every night, but even on a night when you struggle, that switch has to be flipped when your team needs it because you dominate the ball too much. It can't be all about facilitating and throwing lobs and to kick out threes. No, you two have to put the ball in the basket to stop the momentum of the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they weren't able to do it. That is what the game boiled down to. And the reason I still think, Adam, they're going to win this series is because I know one or both of them is going to show up in the remaining 2 or 3 games of this series. I believe it. I think Luka's playing way too slow. Maybe his leg won't let him play faster. If he doesn't pick up the pace and his sense of urgency with the ball and being more decisive and quicker the way he was in Game 5 against the Clippers, if he can't do that, what I just said is wrong. They won't win the series. But I have confidence in seeing Luka Doncic in enough big spots throughout his career, a large enough sample size, to know what I think I'm going to expect in Game 5, which is a big response out of Luka Doncic. He's going to figure out how to put up a bigger number on the board and to have a better shooting night to give them a chance. He just has done it throughout his career. I think he'll do it again in Game 5, and I still have a lot of faith that Dallas is going to win this series.
Game 4 would have been a great spot for it too. I mean, with as banged up as he is, you take a 3-1 lead in that series and you're pretty much going to win it. It gives you, buys you, alleviates pressure, does all these things. So while I'm interested in your confidence, there's a part of me that goes, last night's game was winnable. That free throw at the end of the game could have changed things, and he missed that one. So it wasn't like he had to be spectacular last night, just a little bit better than he was. And one thing that happens in the playoffs legs, and by the way, real quick, we're going to get to Oklahoma City because they deserve, we're starting with Dallas here. Oklahoma City deserves a lot of love, and we're going to get there. So stay tuned, Thunder fans. But this Luka point is so interesting because that was such a bad game that it rattles you. It's one of those things where we just did not expect it. One of the things the playoffs do, you can't just play the right way. Oh, here's the open guy. I think the Thunder are doing a great job of forcing the open guy to be the guys who they want that to be. And we've talked about that in the series. PJ Washington's the one guy that is really stepping up and taking advantage of these extra open opportunities he's getting, especially from the 3-point line. He had 21 points, 5 of 11 shooting. But Luka has to put more pressure on. Oh, they're going to pack the paint. I don't just have to keep kind of moving the ball around, being passive. Sometimes you have to break through even that defensive pressure. And Luka, credit to Lou Dort, who I think is getting so physical with him, crashing into him at times, really using up every foul he has to offer just to be physical and make life hard on him. But to me, Luka has to break through another layer of pressure that the Thunder are throwing his way. And so far, he's been content just to kind of swing and find the open guy. It's tied up. Game 5, you have to overcome that in a way and put even more pressure on them as an individual, in my opinion. What do you think?
I agree. And look, sometimes, man, no matter how great an all-around player you are, and I'll say the same thing about Jokic, and I've said it about him before, because they're kind of similar in that vein. Can control the game without shooting it for stretches, right? And that's why we love them. That's why these are guys that are either 3-time MVPs or a soon-to-be MVP at some point, as we expect Luka to be and break through. That's why we love them. But at some point, it's about you putting the ball in the basket, period. You have to put the ball, regardless of the coverage. Because I'll say this, Lou Dort is a great defender. Lou Dort's a physical defender. Luka's giving him credit for that. I really don't believe there is a defender that is capable of locking Luka up. Okay, now, when he is not 100%, which he's limping around enough to make me think he's not, he limps around a lot in the course of the game. He's spending a lot of time on the ground, and I think that's because of these physical scrums he's getting into with Dort, and I think some of that's Luka's fault. I think some of that is Luka's fault. And he's allowing this to be a UFC fight with Dort, and there are ways to beat Dort. Luka can get a shot off whenever he wants. Now, if he doesn't have the lift, which is what I said, by the way, in the beginning of this series, when I said it, Luka looked cooked because he had no lift on his jump shot. If that's the case, and this continues for the next 2 games or 3, whatever it may be, and they end up losing in 6 or 7 games, then it is what it is, man. You got to address it because, he just never was able to break through. He's had 2 games right now out of 10, over 50% shooting in the postseason. Okay, man. This has been a trend. Maybe it is to such an extent, he just can't do it. And we'll find that out soon enough, because I don't think this is as much about Lou Dort, I said it the other day, as it is about Luka. So the question is, can he play a little bit quicker to avoid as much physical contact, be more decisive in how he's attacking? He's sort of just shuffling around everywhere he goes. And that's when Luka's at his best. Go back to Game 5, the Clippers series, when it was 2-2. Similar thing, back up against the wall. They just lost Game 4. You're thinking, like, what's going to happen now? They got to go on the road to win a game, get things back to Dallas. He goes, and that was his best game in that series. And he was over 50%. He controlled the game. He was by far better than anybody else on the floor. But he looked quicker too. He went quicker. He was he's getting the screen and just going more decisively rather than getting screen, dancing, getting on your back. When he does that stuff, sometimes I think, my goodness, what are you doing? Just turn the corner, go. Get deeper into the lane and make a quick, decisive pass out or a lob or shoot the ball, rather than all this dancing around where you're getting bumped and hit, and there's more propensity to get tangled up and fall. And now you got to pick yourself back up again and grab your leg and all that stuff that's going on with him. All this extracurricular stuff we're paying attention to. There was a rebound last night. They didn't even show a replay. I couldn't believe it. He and Dort ended up, it looked like the movie Iron Claw, like somebody came off the top buckle. These two guys are laying around on the ground wrestling with each other while somebody's taking a corner three. And I'm just, all of that plays into Dort's advantage. And it bangs Luka up even more. And every time he has to get help up off the floor, he looks like he's 75 years old. He needs to come out with a decisiveness and a look to his team like, I'm good, rather than a look of vulnerability and weakness. Because that is what I'm sensing when I'm watching him play. And that is what I expect from him. I expect that from Luka Doncic. Like I said, I have so much faith in this guy. I think Game 5 is his best game of the series coming up.
I love the faith in him, because this is a really huge moment for him. Honestly, things will change based on how he finishes the series now. You go out to win it the way you did in the last round, and it's like, okay, he's hurt, he's playing through it, he's overcoming it. We talked last week, and Mavs fans were upset with me in the comments of our show when I said Luka has to find a way to overcome this injury. Right now, and you're kind of saying the same thing here. There's a lot of dragging that leg around, exaggerating it, looking at refs, upset about the this or that. Him and Jamal Murray were in the same spot last week. The injuries clearly are affecting them in a major way, and it's clearly the first thing on their mind and everything that they're doing. I think Jamal turned around that series for Denver and has turned around his playoffs by forgetting all of that and almost zero focusing in on what is it I have to do. Just do that thing. Everything else is blocked out. I think Luka, to me, looks like a guy that has to put his mind frame in that. He's injured. He's going to have to overcome that. The defense is physical. He can't worry about it. They're packing the paint, daring him to pass. He has to be a little more aggressive. Like, to me, it's a large part about the mentality. And that's why it was so frustrating. And to be honest with you, Legs, when he stepped to the foul line last night, I know people are going to be so annoyed of this, but when he stepped to the foul line last night, I thought to myself, he's going to go 1 of 2. He looks to me like a guy that is about to go 1 of 2.
And I said it. I'm glad you said that, because I said that in a moment. And everybody this morning on the TV I was doing, said that exact same thing. They were all shocked. Well, what do you mean? That's got to be money. It's Luka Doncic. So, like, first of all, Luka Doncic is not a money free throw shooter. He never has been. It's been a weakness in his game. It's always shocked me that Luka Doncic doesn't shoot free throws on a level of a Steph Curry. Honestly, I don't understand it. He's got a great shooting stroke. He's clearly a guy that loves pressure. He's not affected by pressure. So you would think a guy like that would be automatic in those situations. Luka is not, and has not been throughout his career. And he's also banged up, not feeling it on a given night, not in rhythm, goes to the line. And in that particular play, he took probably his worst fall of the night. He took a terrible fall. I don't even know if he got fouled, to be honest with you, but he went down in a heap. 3 guys helped him up. I mean, that's not the look of confidence you want from a guy that's getting ready to go down and go up there and knock down 2 huge free throws. I saw in the comments, somebody made a comment comparing him to Embiid, and I love it from this standpoint. I love it. But I will differentiate it real quick. You're right. Like, what you are exuding is limitation. And that's what Embiid does, unlike any other player I've ever seen. Joel Embiid, even when Joel Embiid is playing well through an injury, the look on his face is of total misery. He doesn't have a look of buoyancy. He doesn't have a look of like a confident like nod, smile. Everybody knows you're hurting, man. You don't have to sell it
This
anymore.
is what I'm saying. Yep.
You don't have to sell that. We know you're hurting. And I feel
Yep.
like Luka last night. Now I will say that Luka didn't have the constant sourpuss look on his face that Embiid does when he's playing like that, which I always think is a downer for his team. Luka doesn't do that. Luka will still smile. Luka will still have little sort of lighthearted moments. He never goes to the depths of Embiid when he's playing with an injury. But it's a great comparison right now because that is what I'm feeling. And this is your guy. The rest of those players, you're looking at this guy. My God, it looks like he's barely getting through this. How are we supposed to get through it? And I think that has to change first. And by the way, Adam, that includes all of this constant whining with the officials. It's nonstop. And it's always been a problem for Luka. And sometimes he gets better with it and he'll call himself out and then he'll be better for a few games. And it's not always right now, it's as bad as it's been since he got into the league. It's every single trip. That's the other thing. Gosh, for a day, if I'm a Dallas Maverick teammate, I am Jason Kidd, I'm Kyrie, just for a game, for this game, let's pretend you're not hurt. Fake it. We all know you are. Fake it.
That's exactly it.
And even if you still have to limp a little bit, because you can't help that if you're hurt. Forget that though. You can limp with a swag. That's what I'm talking about. And then just the way you're carrying yourself on the court. Forget about the distractions and the complaining about Dort and the complaining about. No, go out there. I'm the best player on the court and watch what's about to happen. Get on my back because here's what's going to happen. And that's what I think Luka Doncic needs to portray going into this game. I guess it might might not be enough because Oklahoma City's really good. And by the way, right now we've gone how far into this conversation? We've barely mentioned Kyrie Irving. Where are you?
Yeah.
Where are you?
Same thing, man.
11 shots isn't going to cut it, man. It's not going to cut it on a night that Luka looks like this. That's not going to cut. It's what they brought you in for. Forget the 9 assists. I don't care if Kyrie Irving has another assist the rest of this series. Go get 30. Get 35. Be unguardable. Luka's doing his job by drawing all that attention. Where are you, Kyrie Irving? So there are a couple elements to this for Dallas that I want to see in Game 5. And it really starts with Luka and his demeanor. And then Kyrie Irving right there with him, man. I think you are just as culpable for what happened last night as Luka.
I love that you brought this up, and it's a perfect segue to go to Oklahoma City here because I 100% agree with you that a team takes the energy of their leaders, and when the leaders are confident and calm and all those things, the team has that. Last night, you know who was confident and calm was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Oh, yeah.
That guy was unbelievable all game, but especially in the second half and especially in the fourth quarter and especially in the clutch. 14 of 27 on the game, 34 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. And what do you know? Chet Holmgren hits big free throws and a big three-pointer. Lou Dort hits an enormous three-pointer. The poise from that team in the fourth quarter was it contrasted so nicely with the lack of poise on the other side. And again, I credit so much of that. This is the youngest team to be in this position that we've seen in a really long time. So for them to be as poised as they were, I do credit it to Shai and the way he attacked that. First of all, he wasn't missing. Took so many tough shots in the fourth quarter and kept – the only one he missed was the one that could have been the nail in the coffin, went halfway down somehow and came out. What a gift for the Mavs that one didn't fall. But he played with so much poise and confidence that I honestly believe everyone else on the court was feeling that. And that's why the role players stepped up and hit their free throws, hit their shots. So to me, it's a perfect contrast, Legs.
Totally agree. And now we're going to get into them next because, sometimes you always want, hey, should we start with the positive and the winning team because they deserve it. But I think in this case, it was so dramatic. The way Dallas played in the fourth quarter, we had to mention it. But you're right. The exact opposite out of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. By the way, their season's on the line last night. And you said we haven't seen a team this young in a long time. There's never been a team this young as a 1 seed. It's never happened. Right. That's what we're looking at right now. Their season was on the line last night. I don't think anybody's going to expect them to come back and win 3 straight against a team with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving on it. I don't think anybody expected that. So what happens in a game like that? First and foremost, how about 46 shots between your 2 best players? That's what a game like that's supposed to look like. Right. 27 by their best player. Now, look, he was sensational with his contested shot making in the fourth quarter. He just put on a show, man. Getting to
behind
his spot.
He was like out of bounds on that one.
Yeah,
out of bounds.
Over the corner backboard. It's insane. And a lot of those were like this, Adam, palm on palm on the release, man.
Yep.
The margin for error was so slim, and he was knocking down these big shots. But so you don't know that they're always going to go in. And maybe last night he misses 2 or 3 of those and they lose the game by 2 or 4. I'm not coming on here today and he's 14 for 27. Let's say he went 11 for 27. I'm not crushing him because he went down the way that he's supposed to by carrying the load offensively and carrying the burden. And this is a team that moves the ball. They move the ball. This isn't an isolation team, but he understood the significance of the moment. And he put that team on his back in the fourth quarter and then got some nice timely contributions out of everybody else. Even Jalen Williams, who has not had a very good series, he has not shot it well. He took 19 shots last night because he's trying to fulfill his role as a co-star. They took 46 shots. Luke and Kyrie took 31. They made 19 field goals. Luke and Kyrie made 10. They weren't just outplayed. They were dominated. And that is where this game got away from Dallas because Shai operated in a place of comfort and calm. I think I love about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander too, by the way. Like none of those shots he hit that were all significant down the stretch. None of those shots did you see a fist pump or a stare at the crowd for a second, right? No, man. The dude doesn't change his expression. He just goes back, plays defense because he understands he's got to stay even keeled to be able to deliver in those moments. And that's exactly what he did. And it was a great contrast with what we were seeing on the other end of the floor. And it's going to stick out, by the way, to those two Dallas Maverick stars when they watch the film of this game back and look at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's demeanor and the way that he tried to carry this team when they needed it, because that was not Luka and Kyrie last night. I'm not saying they ran from the situation, but they absolutely were not as aggressive as they needed to be as scorers, because they're the two guys that everybody's counting on to put the ball in the basket when it matters most. And they just did not do it.
The other guy that I kind of want to just mention, and I'm curious what you thought of his game, was Cason Wallace. He's impressed me so much. I actually think his development is perhaps the biggest storyline for them when you talk about the margins of this team in a playoffs, because Josh Giddey, 12 minutes, that's been the case. His minutes have been getting reduced in this series. Clearly, they have to win without him. So who is the guy? And Wallace he just made so many plays. Yeah. He played 19 minutes, only took 2 shots, made both of them, 2 3-pointers, and they were both big. But he just gives them the flexibility to have another player out there with their main lineups. Obviously, Isaiah Joe has been that guy as well, throughout the course of the year. But Cason Wallace, to me, is the guy. I wondered all year, what are they going to do about Giddey? How are you going to, if you have to go away from him, who's the guy? Well, it turns out the answer for the most part has been Cason Wallace, and he's done his job.
Absolutely has. And look, they might not have the depth in terms of guys that you're going to get like an unlikely scoring punch out of, but it doesn't matter. It's not about that. It's make a couple timely shots if you get opportunities, but then it's like effort and energy and length and right, the ability to be involved in the action. And you saw that out of their bench in this game. I thought Chet was very, very good in this game, man. He was great. He was just, again, poised. He was a deterrent, 4 blocks, and he had to have another 4 or 5 plays that he affected at the rim. That's a massive difference maker in a game like this. That's a low-scoring game that is coming down to possession by possession. The impact that he had on the game defensively, 9 boards, 6 for 9 from the field, 40 minutes, played absolutely great. By the way, took a nasty elbow to the head late in the game where he was bent over, kind of coming up the court, trying to get his bearings. And right after that, he went to the line and made those 2 free throws. So give him credit, man. They hung around because this game at one point looked like it could get out to 15-20. And Oklahoma City just hung around. And now here we go. We're in a 1-possession game down the stretch. And we have our best player operating in a place of great comfort, and they don't have anybody operating like that. And they took advantage of it, and they fought. And I give them a lot of credit, man. They're really well coached. They got great connection. Seem like they got great chemistry as a group, and they're young, but they believe. And a lot of young teams in that situation, you get down double figures in a game like that, that might be a difficult thing to dig out of. They did it. Very impressed by them. We got a best-of-3 series, and if Oklahoma City takes this thing to distance, they get that last game on their court, and that's what you played in the regular season for.
What a test for them, by the way, being down 2-1. You're the 1 seed. You're down 2-1. You have to go on the road. And then the game is so tight down the stretch, and they still just maintain that poise. I'm so impressed with them. I think there's still questions. I know Thunder fans will be upset about it. I think there's still questions ahead for just how good this team can be. but we are what, 7, 8 games into this now for them, 8 games into the playoffs for them, and they have not looked rattled. And when we talk about the playoffs are different. One of the ways they're different is the pressure is more palpable. Hasn't affected them so far in a way that is just so unbelievably impressive. And you mentioned the free throws from Chet Holmgren. The 3 he hit in the corner to me was the one that I just could not believe, because Shai had a run where he was just making everything, and you knew at some point he was going to have to give the ball up. He gives it up to Dort, drains a 3, and he gives it up to Chet in the corner, and he drains a 3 in a crucial moment. You just thought, my God, this whole team is nails in the clutch. It's so impressive. All right, we have a new segment, Legs, we got to get to. It's a new segment presented by Shady Rays. Let's put on our rose-colored glasses and explain to the people why the future is bright for both the Mavericks and the Thunder. This is brought to you by Shady Rays. Head to shadyrays.com and use code AC35 at checkout. You get 35% off polarized sunglasses just in time for summer. All right. There it is. Oh my gosh, there it is. We got them now. The future's so
these
bright.
These are actually Shady Rays. I just got my first pair. I'm loving my Shady Rays, so I'm doing this segment just like this.
Man, what a professional over here. All right. Mavs fans are upset at you. You were hard on Luka there in that first segment. But tell them why the future is bright. You said they're going to win the series. Why is the future bright for them?
Well, I look at it like this. They have done a lot of things in this series and as a team over the last couple of months that point to championship level. Primarily their physicality, their defense, their presence with size that they didn't have before. They've had some role players make significant contributions as shooters, which you are going to need. So there's a lot to like. And the one thing that hasn't been, I think, top level is the play offensively of their best 2 players. And you just feel like this cannot be a sustained thing where this continues. I predict that one or both of them will have a huge offensive game in each of the remaining games. So that might not be both of them. Maybe game 5, maybe Luka has 35. Kyrie has 22. Maybe game 6, it's Kyrie with 32 and Luka has, 18. And then maybe game 7, they both get 30 plus if it takes a game 7. I don't think we're going to have another night where both of these guys are inconsequential offensively and get outplayed that thoroughly by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They're too good. And they have too much pride, and they've got a track record of being good and under pressure, both of those guys, Kyrie and Luka. So that's why there's a lot to believe in if you're a Dallas fan. If they were getting gutted right now, they couldn't guard this team, and Luka and Kyrie were struggling, that's a totally different story. That's not the case. Their defense has been on point. Their defense is doing what they need to do. They need their best 2 players to play better. It's that simple.
Yeah, there's no question about it, man. And I believe they can as well. But I'll say this, man, as optimistic as you were in that segment, this is a huge game, in my opinion, for Luka, game 5. And really the series, because you could lose game 5 and win the last 2. So I'll bunch it all together. But when Mavs fans were talking about the MVP this year and how badly they wanted it, one of my notes was, be careful what you wish for, because the pressure is coming for Luka. Like, this is the last year where you kind of get a pass. I know there's people out there that try to knock him down and say this or that about him. He's a great player, but the pressure is coming for him. And this year to me, and this series to me, is a sort of watershed series for him, in that you don't come out of this one. The Thunder pass you. Shai passes you. Forget the injuries. Forget all that stuff. Nobody remembers that stuff a year from now. It just comes down to, oh yeah, he had 17 points in that one game and he wasn't very aggressive and he couldn't come out this or that. That's all that remains from all of this. So for me, I love your confidence in Luka and in Kyrie's ability to do that, because I agree with you. Now the question is, can they get it done? Let me ask the same question though. Why is the future bright for the Thunder?
Well, here's the thing. I think this is, and I don't want to call it house money. I think that sometimes people use that expression. I don't like it in this case, because it's not house money when you're the 1 seed. No, it's not. You think you're going to win a championship. If you're the 1 seed in the Western Conference, that's what you think. You don't even think about, oh, we can't beat Boston even if we get there, or how are we going to beat Denver? No, you think you can run the table and win the whole thing. So that's the truth, and that's the reality, and that is their mindset, and that is exactly where it should be. They deserve the right to think that way. But here's where the positivity comes in. Even if you do come up short, whatever, if it's this series or the next or wherever it may be, what you have seen out of this group this year bodes very, very well for this being a sustained run. This isn't something where you slap together some great offensive players and had a 2-year window to try to win it, or you're going to blow it up and fire a coach. That's not what this looks like. So regardless, yes, as a fan of Oklahoma City, you want to win it this year. I get it. The good news is, regardless of how this plays out, this is a sustainable model that they have built going forward, and it's just going to get better as they supplement their roster and they continue to work on the fringes and continue to upgrade spots. They have something that is going to work long-term in this league, which is a star offensive player and guys around him that complement him and are willingly accepting what their role is on a specific team and finding that cohesion amongst the group. They've got that. What I just described sounds a lot like Denver, does it not? They've got a lot of the Denver vibe in them. So that's the good news for Oklahoma City fans. It's almost a no-lose situation no matter how this goes. Your future is bright for the next X amount of years.
It's maybe the brightest I've seen, honestly, in a really long time for a team, because they clearly have the right coach. I think Dagnott is unbelievable. They clearly have the right star in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I think they have the right supporting cast pieces in Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, and Lou Dort. And then you add guys like Cason Wallace, who I love, Isaiah Joe, who I love. And then you have the ability to add to that core. It's unbelievable, and this team is ahead of schedule. All right, Legs. You look like Michael Jordan. You remember the famous Michael Jordan interview where he was talking about gambling's not a problem?
I do. Hey, by the way, Shady Rays. I'm not exaggerating. These might be the most comfortable sunglasses I've ever put on in my life.
Look at this, man. Incredible. Big money Legs over here. I love it. Let's take a break. On the other side, we're going to get into the other series that happened yesterday, the short-handed Cavs. What a valiant effort from them, but they came up short. Did we learn something about that series, or did we learn something about the Cavs? We'll talk about that on the other side. But first, Legs was styling them for you. You want to look like Legs? Everybody wants to look like Legler. Head to Shady Rays. Get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all of your outdoor adventures. By the way, they have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match whatever style: casual, formal, athletic, ski goggles. They've got all kinds of stuff over there, so you're going to want to check them out. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code AC35 for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Also want to tell you about DraftKings Sportsbook. The show is, of course, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. You can find same-game parlays, live betting, odds boosts, and so much more. Don't miss out on all of the NBA postseason action. Just 2 rounds left, the conference finals and the finals. And, of course, 3 series wrapped up 2-2. Maybe you have a team that you've seen so far and you say, you know what, that looks like the next champs. I'm going to put a future bet on them. Only the Celtics odds are like so strong right now. That might be the only bad bet in terms of value right now. All these series at 2-2, if you believe the Wolves, the Thunder, the Mavs, or the Nuggets are going to come out of the West, now is the time to get in on that futures bet and lay down some money and see if you can be right on it. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code ALLNBA. That's ALLNBA. For new customers, get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or in West Virginia, visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 and over. Age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.co/bball for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources.
All right, back here, segment 2 of the LNBA show with myself, Adam Mares, and Tim Legler. Hit that like button if you're watching live. Leave us a comment, and make sure to subscribe on all podcast platforms and on YouTube so you can catch the show live. We will be live, by the way, programming note, Wednesday and Thursday this week. We'll be off Friday. So we'll have a show tomorrow. We'll have a show Thursday. So set your reminders. The Celtics get the win 109-102 over the Cavs. The Cavs were shorthanded. No Donovan Mitchell. He had a calf strain. By the way, the injury of the year, the calf strain, the injury of the playoffs, the official injury. Everybody's got one. It's the hot new injury everybody's picking up. So he was out. You still had Jared Allen out. But you know what? this Cavs team, when they play Mobley at center, you give the ball, put the ball in Garland's hands. They're not as good, but they have interesting dynamics. It creates an adjustment for the Celtics on the fly in that, okay, now this is going to be a different team and a different look. And I thought the Cavs did a really nice job of staying connected in this game. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, Legs, the paint pressure that Donovan Mitchell is able to put on, just his downhill driving, his quick first step driving, you're missing a little bit of that. You obviously, you had Garland doing some of that, but they took 48 threes. To me, that pressure was different than what Mitchell gets you because you're getting downhill and kicking out. There wasn't the threat of getting to the cup, drawing contact, drawing fouls, just 7 free throw attempts in this game. To me, the Cavs did incredible based on the fact that they had to take 48 threes and they only took 7 free throws. But nonetheless, those were the things that made them come up short from my eyes. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, they missed 33 threes. The Celtics missed 40 total shots. Listen, that's a lot. That's a lot of threes. But look, without Mitchell, I mean, there are guys on that roster that's really the main way they're going to have any sort of impact is by taking those shots. So I don't necessarily have a problem with the number. Look, I have a lot of respect for what Cleveland did in this game and the number of runs that they made to try to just fight their way back and make it interesting there in the last couple of minutes, down 5 a couple of times. And one of them, they get actually a strip and there's a loose ball down 5 and Tatum recovers his own, missed ball or lost ball and puts it back in. That was the backbreaker play.
Yep.
Here's why I look at this series in this game. And I talked a lot about the Celtics this morning in terms of, are we not like really paying attention to them? Are they not getting credit? Are we underwhelmed by what we're seeing? And I'm like looking at it like this. They're not going to get real analysis out of anybody until they play a team that we think they could be in danger of losing to. That's just not the case right now. And I thought, if you want to know, to me, the takeaways, they're 7-2 in the postseason. By any stretch, that'd be awesome for any team, right? And we're still not really kind of, too into this or vibing on this too much. I do think the 2 biggest statements they had to make, they made games 3 of both series because they lost game 2 at home both times to teams they shouldn't have lost to at home. And they come right back, go on the road. And before that can really build into something serious where there's real anxiety on the part of, inside their own locker room, what could affect their shooting in the next game or the pressure of being a 64-win team that loses to that team like Miami or Cleveland. Before that could have happened or get off the ground, they went and they just decisively won game 3. So they changed venues. It's like, okay, snatch, got that right back, got home court back. Now here we go. Status quo. They finished off the Heat pretty quickly. They win again last night. No Mitchell. And it's important, Adam, I think, because now they get to go home. It's important they win that game because they don't have to travel again in this series. And they sit back and they wait and see what comes out of the New York-Indiana series. Very important they end this in the next game. And you can't do that unless you win last night. So as much as we want to say, hey, Tatum's been just okay. He had 2 33-point games, but he was 11 for 25, 2 games in a row. So is it solved? Is Jayson Tatum now at peak level? No, but he's a lot closer. He's trending toward that, which is a good sign for them. They still don't have Porzingis. We don't know when that's going to be. They're going to need him eventually to win a championship, I believe. But in the meantime, let's respect what they've done with some of these road wins that they've gotten before things got serious in terms of talk radio in Boston. And now there's all this anxiety built up, right? They didn't let it get to that point. That says something about them. You wouldn't like to see them lose game 2 at home. I get it, but they certainly responded in both cases going on the road and getting control really quickly. And they did it again in this series. And I expect, as everybody does, they're going to end this in 5 games and they're going to get the maximum amount of rest getting ready for the next round. And I don't know. I haven't heard any updates on Porzingis. I don't know when we're going to get him back, but hopefully at some point in the conference finals, they will get him back.
Well, I don't think you have to rush him back now. That's one of the benefits of getting a series done quickly. As you go home now up 3-1, you just won 2 games on the road without him. So can you win game 5? Almost certainly. You don't need to rush him back. And that's another advantage, like that team getting healthy. And by the way, maybe the advantage in the next round, depending on, how those series go, you might be able to, maintain your health, play your guys regular amount of minutes, not an insane amount. And that's a huge advantage for him. But there is the counter to that, which is, what are the Cavs preparing them for? Especially this version of the Cavs. Is this something that they're going to need down the road? You could say the same for the last series. Those are my questions with the Celtics. But to be honest with you, I agree. It's hard to analyze this team right now based on who they're going up against. The one thing I'll say, Jayson Tatum, 25 shots, 10 more than anybody else, and he was just 11 of 25. 33 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, 1 block. It's a good game. I'm not saying it wasn't a good game, but he's the one guy to me that I'm still waiting for, like the Tatum, string a couple games together where we're like, wow, that guy's the best player. He's going to do this and take over this or that. I'm still waiting for that moment from him. Do you think it matters that we see a stretch from Tatum where he just looks like he could be the best player in any series? Or do you think it just doesn't even matter?
I don't think it matters that he has big scoring games like that, if that's what you're talking about. What I would like to see, though, at some point, because look, I think his scoring numbers are going to be just clearly affected by the fact that Jaylen Brown has taken a leap forward offensively in terms of his importance, in terms of his aggressiveness. There are a lot of nights, and look, I think he was the leading scorer on that team over the last 2 months of the season. So, some nights it's blurred who's 1 and who's 1A. They kind of flip-flop that. So by nature, and that's why Tatum wasn't even thought about as an MVP candidate, which is crazy because he's been all league. He's gotten MVP votes. Now he's got the best team he's been on as the leader of the team, and he gets no intention whatsoever as an MVP. It's really interesting the way that works. And the reason is because he's gotten so much help now. You go, okay, well, he's got that much help. He gets no votes because Brown's taken a step forward. Derek White's been unbelievable during this stretch. He's cooled off a little bit here, but prior to the last couple of games, he's been incredible in the postseason. You added a Drew Holiday, who's going to get shot attempts. You've got guys off the bench that come in and they get their shots up. So I think Tatum's numbers can come down. What I do want to see, Adam, is let me see some 50% shooting nights. Like I want to see a 10 for 19 game with throw in 6 free throws and a couple of threes, and there's my 28 to 30. I want to see games like that out of Jayson Tatum, and that is what we haven't seen because even these 2 big scoring outbursts he just had, he shot 44% from the field in both games, identical, 11 for 25. That's not peak performance for Jayson Tatum. So it doesn't have to be 30 plus or 35 or a 40-point game to put his stamp on things. I don't think he needs that on this team. But what he does need to do is be more efficient in the way he's playing offensively. I think they're going to need that going forward. So whether that's, this next game against Cleveland, finish off this series with one of those games I just described, I think that would be a really good sign for him. And if he doesn't get it, then I think they're going to need it in the next series. I think to where we might get into like a danger zone territory against the Knicks and the Pacers. I think that could be possible through 4 games. Maybe it's 2-2 if he doesn't start having more nights like I'm describing.
What do you think of LeBron James at the game? This is kind of a new thing. Here's the thing, though. I will say, well, let me just say this. There's I'm with you, too, in terms of the speculation about LeBron specifically. Here's one thing that's interesting to me, and maybe I'm wrong on this, Legs. I feel like athletes didn't used to attend games very often. It was a big deal when an athlete was at a game. It's pretty common now. At all of these playoff games, there's NBA players there. And also, I actually think it's kind of cool. Forget the speculation, because I think people want to go straight to, is he trying to go to Cleveland in the offseason? Forget that. You're seeing NBA players at all of these playoff games, and I just think it's neat because it tells me there's a lot of athletes or a lot of NBA players that really like the game, and they like it as much as we are, and we're going to sit courtside and watch it up close.
I agree. When I played, you didn't do it, or I would have, because this is cool as hell. Like if I were playing in today's league, I'd be at games. I'm sorry. If my team got eliminated, I'd be at games because it's fun. The environment's great. Tyrese Maxey was sitting courtside last night in Dallas. It's interesting because LeBron, and I know it's obviously 2 totally different storylines because of the history and stuff, but LeBron, right, gets the shout out. We talked about it all morning on like different shows. We're talking about LeBron being at a game and what does it mean? Like Tyrese Maxey was at the game last night. He actually helped Shai Gilgeous-Alexander off the floor at one point because he was sitting on the baseline and he fell like by the basket support. That's where Tyrese Maxey was sitting. He helped him up, whatever. And they mentioned it on the broadcast. They never even showed Tyrese Maxey on camera. Like, and I'm going, wait, this guy's an all-star, man. Like maybe you want to get the camera on Tyrese Maxey. They didn't even show him. But you're right. It used to be if you were an athlete that went to a game, you were an athlete from a different sport and you were there. And that still happens quite a bit. But guys that played that sport, you really didn't see them showing up, and it's more and more common and more prevalent. And I think it's cool too. I've got no problem whatsoever. And look, LeBron's a passive aggressive guy with his messaging, and I looked at this as a giant social media post rather than go to Instagram, go to X and make a post, which has everybody scratching their head. What's he mean by that? Now that he's home and the playoffs are still going on, like that's a typical LeBron thing. This was like, instead of doing that, I'll just show up and create a social media moment and get everybody talking about it, which is exactly what I spent a good portion of this morning doing. I don't think it has any bearing on what he wants to do or what his future is. I really don't. I think LeBron's going to opt out. I think there's a very good chance he re-signs in LA. They're going to give him whatever amount of money he wants, whatever amount they can, every last cent. And I think there's a very good chance he just stays in LA. The bigger component to all this is the Bronny component, which now is getting talked because Bronny had a good day at the combine. He performed well. He shot the ball 19 out of 25 in a three-point shooting drill that is in a high exertion drill. They've changed that drill, but they did a drill when I played too, and it's tiring and it's hard. And he didn't shoot the ball well from the college line at USC. So now you're going to do that in this setting. A lot of pressure, a lot of eyeballs on you. It's a much deeper shot, and you're putting you through a pretty intensive workout. You go 19 for 25. That is impressive. He's shorter than they said. He's 6'1.5" instead of 6'3" that he was listed. He's heavier than he was in college. He's 210, and you can see these added muscle mass since the season ended. His vertical was great. There were some good signs coming out of the combine. I don't know what that ultimately means. I have people texting me, oh, he's flat out not an NBA player. Well, I haven't seen Bronny James play enough, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Let's see how it plays out. That component is the most interesting component about where LeBron James is going to play going forward, because it's inconceivable to me that Bronny James is on an NBA roster at some point in the next 2 to 3 years, and LeBron James is not his teammate. That's inconceivable to me. That LeBron James would go that road. Might not be the first year. Maybe he wants Bronny to go get his feet wet, man, be his own man for a year and kind of figure out the NBA. But maybe beyond that, who knows? All bets are off then. So I think there's a good chance if Bronny's in the league, which I don't think that's a guarantee, I think that would happen at some point.
Let's move on now and talk about these series that are going on tonight. The Nuggets-Wolves Game 5. Oh my God, this one's going to be an instant classic. This series has been phenomenal. A home team has not won yet. And we're going on just 2 days rest, coming back to this to get Game 5 underway. What are you looking for tonight? What do you expect?
I can't envision Minnesota winning another game on the road in this series. I don't see that happening. So whether they go home and win Game 6, that's possible. I mean, they're a good enough team to be able to do that. I don't see them winning in Denver. To not get at least a split at home after accomplishing what you did in Denver, I think you gave the series right back to Denver. And I don't even say gave it back to them. Denver took it. They took it. And they took it because they made adjustments offensively to create space and room for themselves. The screening was much better. The different guys that handled the ball to initiate, much better and much more inclusive. Jamal Murray, flat out, looks better. He looks faster. He looks like he's got more acceleration. He's got good lift on his jumper. He is a factor now offensively. He was not in the first 2 games for a combination of the calf plus the defense. The defense in the last 2 games, Adam, for Minnesota was a non-factor. It was a non-factor. And it went from that's one of the greatest defensive performances I've ever witnessed to a non-factor, because I don't think they're affecting Denver anymore at all. I don't. Denver's operating in spaces of comfort now. Jokic is getting the ball where he wants it. Murray is operating faster and quicker. Guys aren't fighting through screens consistently on him anymore. And I think that was in large part because he was not moving as fast over the screens. So guys were able to get that leg through on a dribble handoff, on a ball screen. And so he'd come off and had no room to operate. It's not the case anymore. He's coming off ball screen or dribble handoff. He's got space to operate. And it's forcing reactions out of Minnesota. And that's when Denver's at their best. When you force a reaction, now we're going to get the best shot possible for us every trip. And that is what they're doing. So I don't think that's going to change now. I don't know how Minnesota corrals that again and puts that back in the barn. It's out now. Denver's operating with great comfort level on that end of the floor, which is what Michael Malone said was his biggest concern. Were we going to be able to score enough in this series? He wasn't worried about his defense. He was worried about his offense. And that looks to be in a really good place now as they go back to Denver. And I just can't imagine Denver losing 3 straight home games in a series, particularly not to a young team that has not been in this environment very much collectively. So I think Denver, whether it's 6 or 7, Denver now is in control.
One adjustment I would not be surprised if Minnesota made, and it's less of an adjustment and more of a gamble. They know how this would go to a certain degree. I would not be surprised if going home to Game 5, they don't just say, make Jokic beat us and make him beat us with a huge number. Last year, the Suns forced this on Jokic in Game 4 of that playoff series. Jokic had 53 points, but the Suns won. They outgunned them, despite Jokic going for 53. I would not be surprised if they said, look, at home, you expect Michael Porter. He only took 4 shots. They try to shut him off. KCP, they try to shut him off and, just play in the margins. I would not be surprised if this game they said, Gobert, we're not going to do the whole thing where we're trying to switch guys, this, that. Let's help Gobert, at least in large stretches, guard Jokic. We know Jokic's going to score, but let's just make Jokic do that over and over again. We know he doesn't like to do that. And at home, maybe we do that for 3 quarters. In the fourth quarter, we play him a little bit more honest the way we have been playing. But I would not be surprised if they try to disrupt Denver's rhythm by just making Jokic be the guy that has to shoot 27, 28 times tonight. And, to be honest with you, it's not the worst strategy. When you don't have answers, when you run out of answers for Denver, it's not the worst strategy to say, just make one guy beat him, even if it's that guy. Yeah. Just make him do it because he doesn't love doing that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Luke or Jokic is in the mindset now he would do that if that's what it took. And he's going to read. He's going to read the room and he's going to read the situation. I noticed something in the 2 games in Minnesota. One I sat there for, so I really got to see some of the stuff that wasn't on camera. And I just in watching his interaction with his teammates, some of it in Game 4 was caught on camera. And I'm curious, as a guy that watches this team every night, the way you do, and I don't get to do that during the course of the season. Do you find it rare to see Jokic demonstrably getting into his teammates in given moments about certain things, a bad pass, a blown assignment, whatever, a shot that he didn't particularly love at that time? Because I've seen that in the last couple of games, and it pointed to the seriousness with which Jokic is treating this. In fact, the first time I saw a different camera angle this morning on the half-court shot that Murray hit at the end of the half, which was a huge momentum shift, that whole 35 seconds. Jokic was walking toward half court. So the play was in front of him. So the camera came from behind Jokic. Yeah. Murray lets it fly, hits it. Everybody goes bananas around him. Players, even Kevin Harlan calling the game, was standing up at the table, leaning over. He's
Great
yelling.
Ball. Great moment.
It was awesome. Jokic had no reaction to it.
Yeah.
None. And I thought it told me a lot, man. And Gordon threw a head pass to him last night that was way over his head. It sailed out of bounds, and he turned and he just barked at him, was giving him some hand gesture. I'm like, man, I thought you really see that out of him, and I liked it because it showed me he understands like the seriousness of this situation, and they can't just go there and get a split. They got to win 2 games. They got to win 2, and they did it. And that's why I think his mindset right now. And I thought Michael Malone was great. He challenged them. Are you guys just want to win a championship, or you want to be one of X number of teams that have repeated and maybe win more than that? What do you guys want? And he asked them that in the days off before Game 3. And that is the look that Jokic has right now. So if it takes 30 shots tonight or in the next game, Game 5, he's going to take 30 shots. If that's what it takes to win the game, that's what he's going to do tonight. And so I think that let's just read the situation, see how Minnesota plays them, how they adjust, what they do different defensively. They got to do something because Denver right now is really humming.
It reminds me of a story. Somebody told me one time that Ty Lue doesn't coach the defense in the regular season. But then in the playoffs, he takes over for his team and he'll be the one that's sort of, calling everything out and talking to guys and getting on guys. And the reason is, if you do it all year, a team will get tired of you and eventually it'll lose its luster. I think Jokic is the same way. I think all year Jokic is passive aggressive at best. Every now and then you could tell he's giving faces and you could tell he's frustrated, but he's not saying anything. But I think come playoffs, that's when he becomes this guy. He's yelling. What are you doing? Get the ball here, do this or that. And I have to imagine there's probably a strategic element of that to him too. If I do this all year, guys are going to wear down. It's not going to have an effectiveness. But here, it's winning time. Game 4, must win on the road. Now when I talk, everybody hears it and everybody kind of matches the intensity. Let's go to the other series real quick, Knicks-Pacers. The Knicks did not look like a team that was going to, hold on in this series. But that being said, Legs, the biggest mistake analysts make in the NBA, in my opinion, is assuming what happened last game is going to be what happens every game from there on out. Is it possible game 4 was just the throwaway game and game 5 is completely different? And there really is no momentum in this series until tonight. Whoever wins tonight is the team that has it.
No question. In fact, not only is it likely, I fully expect this to be a completely different tone. Doesn't necessarily mean I think the Knicks will win the game. I think the Pacers can win the game tonight. I feel really good about them winning the game, but it's going to be a tough battle. It's going to be a tight game, up in the air, could go either way in the fourth quarter. I think that's how this game is going to go. They will muster that at home. There's no building right now in the league that's energizing their team more than Madison Square Garden is for the Knicks, and they need it badly right now. They're shorthanded. Guys are tired. I actually think if there's one silver lining coming out of the last game, that was way better for them than losing a close game at the end of the game, because that would have meant Josh Hart played 48 minutes again. Jalen Brunson played 46 minutes. DiVincenzo played 47, and you still ended up 2-2. Instead, Josh Hart played 24 minutes. He actually got, for the first time, like normal-looking playing time. Brunson had 31, a bunch of other guys in the 20s. The game was over in the third quarter. And so if there's any silver lining, it's that. They had more time off to recuperate, get their bodies as close to, max as they're going to get tonight. Everybody's tired and banged up, and they're shorthanded. The rotation's not much you can do about that. Tibbs didn't elect to cultivate Alec Burks or Shake Milton or the guys that you're going to need to play a little bit. They just were forgotten because he never thought he'd be in this situation, but he is in this situation once Anunoby went down. And so you're going to have to get some minutes wherever you can. It's not about those guys. It's about Hart and DiVincenzo and Brunson and Hartenstein. That's what this game is about. And they've shown you enough to know this is going to be a bar fight. And this is going to be the hardest game Indiana's played all year to try to get this. Because if you lose the game for Indiana, there's probably a really good chance you're going to force a game 7. Game 7's on the road. Just look at the math. Doesn't work out well for the road teams usually. I think Indiana's got a great chance to win the game. I think the pace has been, they're liking the entire series. Halliburton is loose now. They have not solved TJ McConnell's impact. I think, and I said this on the air before I came on with you, tonight I think this is a Pascal Siakam game. Ooh. I think Siakam has a big game tonight, and they need it. He's been good. Like, they're not even 7 for 9. That's a very good game. He hasn't had one of those games he had early in the playoffs, first 2 games against the Bucks. I think this could be that, because I think there's going to be a lot of focus on Halliburton tonight. I think there's going to be a lot of focus on McConnell. I think there's going to be keep him out of the paint. There's going to be opportunities for Pascal Siakam to catch and operate and go, because this defense has shifted, and he attacks closeout guys as well as anybody in this league. I think he's going to be aggressive. His shot totals are going to be up. This is what you brought him in for. He's got a lot of experience in moments like this. I think this is a Siakam game that we're talking about him tomorrow morning when we're recapping the game. That might be the first name I mentioned.
Man, tonight might be an all-timer. 2 game 5s that are just huge. Either team could win. You could see the Nuggets and Knicks winning. You see the Pacers and Timberwolves winning. You could see any combination there. That's what's going to make tonight really great. All right, we have a couple super chats to get out on here. Emma, what do we got first? Psycho Blue says, why can't the Mavs score against the Thunder? It may have something to do with their best player playing through a knee injury over the at least the past month, or the second best getting older. Nah, I think that's a sarcastic one. Weren't the Thunder winning with those same injuries? He just said it was the past month. Weren't they winning? And now they're not. So I know. Look, I hate this mentality. Is such a non-athletic one.
First of all, even if I took the first half of that statement and agreed with you on the Luka component, Kyrie's aging. What is this?
Yeah, he's too old.
Benjamin Button now? All of a sudden he's like 30 years older than he. Well, that's actually in reverse. He got younger right as it went. What are you talking about? Kyrie Irving now is all of a sudden, that's an excuse. He's getting older right before our eyes stop. That's not an excuse for Kyrie Irving. They're playing too slow. If that's because of Luka, because he's got a weight around his ankle with that leg, then I guess what? They're in trouble. But there has to be another gear. They've got to be faster up the floor. They've got to be more decisive coming off screens. They've got to do things quicker before Oklahoma City turns this into a wrestling match in the half court. That's what it comes down to. Their pace is terrible for them. They've got more offensive weapons. too elite. They've got to be quicker to get into their sets and operate in the first 10 seconds of the clock. That's actually a big adjustment Denver made in this series. They're much faster up the floor. They're getting over half court in 3-4 seconds. Like Luka is shuffling around all the time. He's got to play faster. If he doesn't, they're in trouble.
Yeah, 100%. And by the way, I said this with the Nuggets when they were down 0-2. To become a legend, you have to do legendary things. And sometimes that is overcoming the flu. Sometimes it's overcoming a dislocated shoulder. Rajon Rondo played a very important game, and by the way, played fantastic with a shoulder that bent backwards in the middle of the game. Pops it back in, goes out there and plays. It's an injury that should have kept him out for a long time. Sometimes you have to become a legend, you have to do legendary things. Luka's capable of it. Look, if he loses, they lose. That's the risk you take in sports. But he has more than what he has given, in my opinion. He has more than what he gave in Game 4. All right, what else we got? Jonesy says, you look like a Terminator stunt double. All love. Oh, man, let's go back to it. Here it is.
And you know the
Terminator
good thing about
right
this,
there.
You know the good thing about this pod? I'll be back tomorrow, actually.
What else we got? One more? Carlos Hernandez says, plus they missed their free throws as a team, 100%. Talking about the Mavericks.
That's what Luka talked about after, but I thought that was secondary to the bigger conversation of those guys putting the ball in the basket in the course of their sets. Forget the foul line, man. Put the ball in the basket, be more aggressive as scorers.
My favorite line, Charles Barkley had it on Inside the NBA earlier this year when he was talking about Anthony Edwards. When your best player is a dog, everybody on your team knows it, and it gives everybody else confidence that, hey, our guy is never shaken, always gives his best punch, he's competitive, he's aggressive, he always is those things. Luka can be that. He has that dog in him. He's got to channel it going into Game 5, and if he does, we're going to see an incredible performance. All right, that does it for today. Big games tonight means a big show tomorrow. I can't wait for tomorrow's one. Should be a great one. Legs, bring the glasses
Caitlin Clark
tomorrow.
on tonight, too. Caitlin Clark tonight, debut.
Is that right? Tonight's the debut?
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. So you got that one as well. Man, what a night of hoops we have tonight, Legs. Everybody, hit that like button on the way out. We'll see you tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.